Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Shaw here, and we are ready to go to continue our journey through the amendments to the U.S. Constitution. Today, we're going to be talking about the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th Amendments, and it's just delightful. So let's get right to it. All right, so Sixth Amendment first. Again, in the last one we talked about, remember that we're in the process of talking about due process, okay? So due process means that no one can be deprived of life, liberty, or property without the due process of the law. Again, meaning you have to follow the established legal procedures in order to deprive someone of life, liberty, or property. So that includes the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th Amendments. So finishing up with the due process ones, we have the 6th Amendment next. Now, again, the 5th Amendment, like the 4th Amendment deals with like the police and authorities searching your property. Okay, the 5th Amendment deals with what happens when you are accused of a crime. And then the 6th Amendment is going to deal with the trial for that crime. So again, lots of stuff to talk about with the Sixth Amendment. So again, the first thing is that it requires that the accused be told the exact nature of the charges against them. And the biggest thing is that it's allowed a trial by jury, although they can't ask to be tried by only a judge instead. So again, the biggest thing that I would take away from the Sixth Amendment is that it allows for a trial by jury, a jury trial, in criminal cases. That trial must be speedy and public, and the jurors must be impartial as well. Okay, and the accused individuals have the right to hear and question all witnesses against them, and be permitted to call witnesses in their own defense. Okay, the last part of that is that you are also entitled to a lawyer, and if you can't afford one, the state has to provide one. Okay, this is really important, and we're going to talk about that more when we talk about Gideon v. Wainwright. But again, you have the right to an attorney. Okay, you have the right to a trial by jury. That jury needs to be impartial. The trial must be speedy and public. Okay, and you must be informed of the charges against you, and you must be able to hear and question all witnesses against you, and call witnesses for your defense. Okay, so the Seventh Amendment is the exact same as the Sixth Amendment, except it deals with civil cases. So again, Sixth Amendment, criminal cases, civil cases. These are cases that involve disputes between two people, and that is like, so for example, like if my neighbor, like a tree that was my neighbor's property, on my neighbor's property, and he needed to take care of it, and he just had never taken care of it, and it fell and it damaged my house, I can sue my neighbor, okay, for damages because that was his responsibility and he didn't take care of it. Usually when like you talk about if people like go to court for traffic accidents or things like that, that's all civil cases. Things like divorce, child custody, those are all civil cases. So there are laws still there. Like it's not about like not breaking laws, but usually it's just about disputes between two parties. So Seventh Amendment, same thing, trial by jury, speedy and public, impartial jury. Okay, the right to hear the charges against you, okay, and the right to bring witnesses in your defense, and you're also entitled to a lawyer, but in this case, civil cases instead of criminal cases, okay? And again, it's all disputes more than $20, which is hilarious because, again, nowadays, like $20 isn't really that much money, but they've never changed it. So anyway, now you know. All right, Eighth Amendment. So now we've covered the trial. And now the Eighth Amendment covers when you are found guilty, okay? Also, really, when you're being held prisoner. So the first thing is that it forbids excessive bail. And so what excessive bail means, or in this case, excessive, does not refer to what a person can afford to pay. The judge is going to consider various factors when determining bail, things like the crime types, the record of the accused person, likelihood that they will appear in court, and the bail can be denied if the defendant is likely to flee. So, for example, let's say that I'm accused of a crime, never been accused of a crime before, but let's say that I was, accused of jaywalking or something like that. Again, they take various factors, the idea of like what I can pay. Again, that is a part of it. Again, the crime, not very big, not very huge, didn't like, threaten people's lives or something like that, besides maybe my own. And so when they go to set the bail, an excessive bail would be like, even $500,000 would be excessive, because I'm not a danger to anyone else, and I don't have a criminal record. Okay, so that's the idea with excessive. Okay, so like if somebody is if somebody is accused of murder, and they're likely to flee, or they have a criminal history rather, that like the bail can be set much higher. And so what bail is, and a lot of people don't know this, but what bail is it's basically like it's like a deposit. It's like a security deposit. It's like, hey, I'm gonna give you this money, and in exchange, you're gonna let me go, and I'm gonna show up to my trial date. So if you show up to your trial date, you get that money back. But if you don't show up to your trial date, then the state will keep the money, and you owe them the rest of the money. And you don't actually have to pay. You don't actually have to pay the whole thing. It's not. I think it's a certain amount. Like it's like a certain percentage that you actually have to pay for that deposit. But again, if you are not present for your actual trial, you'll have to pay the whole thing. So the second part of the Eighth Amendment is if you're convicted, the Eighth Amendment protects whomever is convicted against paying excessive fines and forbids cruel and unusual punishment. So again, Eighth Amendment, we usually just associated with that, like the cruel and unusual punishment piece. Again, it's generally agreed that punishment should be in proportion to the crime committed. And this is really interesting because a lot of people kind of they disagree on what cruel and unusual actually means. So regardless, we're going to actually go through a bunch of examples in class. So I'm not going to give you any examples now, but maybe I'll just give you one. For example, it has been found that it is cruel and unusual to give the death penalty to a minor. So if a minor is accused of a crime, okay, and that would normally get the death penalty, they cannot actually get the death penalty because they are a minor and their brain hasn't fully developed yet, things like that. Okay, all right, that's Eighth Amendment. Let's continue on with the Ninth. All right, so the Ninth and 10th Amendments, again, you really should kind of know the 10th Amendment already because we've talked about that in class. That deals with state powers. The Ninth Amendment, though, is about the rights of the citizens and the rights of citizens. So the idea here is that if we listed every single right that citizens have, that document would be, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pages long, just because, we have a lot of rights. We have a lot of things that we can do. And so what they do is instead of listing out literally every single one, they list out the most important ones, and then they add the Ninth Amendment there as well. So the Ninth Amendment states that all other rights that are not spelled out in the Constitution are retained by the people. So again, any rights not listed belong to the people, essentially. So this is kind of a catch-all. And so it's basically just admitting like that the people have more rights than those that are in this document, and those rights belong to the people. So basically just you have more rights than what is listed in the Constitution. And so the Ninth Amendment, what it does is it prevents the government from saying people have only those rights that are listed. And this is really important because this is a big thing that the anti-federalists were worried about, because they were super worried that the government, especially with like the necessary and proper clause, would be able to just continually expand their power, but also if, when ironically Hamilton was on the Federalist side was worried about writing down the rights that people had and that would allow the government then to say you only have these rights and no others. So again, the Ninth Amendment is kind of a catch-all for that. It kind of solves both problems. We have more rights than are those that are listed, and the government is still not going to be able to infringe upon those rights. Last one, like I said, you already know about the 10th Amendment. Again, it says any powers in the Constitution. Sorry, it's worded kind of strangely. I apologize. Any powers to the Constitution does not specifically give to the national government are reserved for the states and for the people. So any powers not listed Because again, remember, the listed powers are for the federal government. Any powers not listed they belong to the people, and then specifically they belong to the states, which represent the people better. And this is really important because it's going to essentially allow states, to have all of these powers that are not, anything that's not listed is going to belong to them. So it's another catch-all kind of amendment. If they listed every state power that states had, it would take forever. So they just said, okay, anything not listed or denied to the states belongs to it belongs to the states. Okay, and again, in a way, this is going to prevent Congress and the president from becoming too powerful. And we'll talk about McCulloch v. Maryland more in class. McCulloch v. Maryland actually is it kind of goes against the idea, it like lowers state powers a little bit, but again, it kind of deals with the 10th Amendment still. Anyway, guys, I'm all done here. I appreciate you. I'll see you in the next one. Sorry, it was really bothering me that this thing was not worded very well. So again, any powers the Constitution does not specifically give. So just erase that 2 there, and now you're good. That's all. See you guys.